Hey guys, so today I'm deciding to give CyberWheels a go. Now I said in my intro video to CyberWheels that I didn't feel like they were in the best place just given the current meta, because I felt like they are like a high DPS war dogs but with low HP. However, they're only good versus infantry, and we generally tend to be in a War Factory dominated meta. So you can see in this game, this guy opens War Factory. It's pretty common right now to see a lot of War Factory openers, and that's why CyberWheels might have limited uses. However, it is a 10 cost unit which gives me scouting potential without committing too much Tiberium to the field. So as you see, he went bikes as well as I went bikes. Bikes are a pretty easy counter to the buggy, for instance. And then that allows me to scope up into the Scorpion tank, which I get my first Scorpion tank out. That gives me positional advantage. I'm more than likely to be in a good position here because the first Scorpion tank onto the field usually is in a pretty strong position. I also saw him waste a shot on my cyberwheels there, so I went in for the kill on my Scorpion tank, and that allowed me to get all of the pressure for this first missile. He can't contest the two pads at the same time, and I can see that he's pretty heavily committing to War Factory. So when your opponent pretty heavily commits to War Factory and doesn't seem to have an answer outside of what you've got on the field, you just go War Factory. Like, the more Scorpion tanks, the better if you're trying to win a War Factory matchup. So you can see here that I'm stacking my Scorpion tanks, making it a little bit more difficult for him to choose his target. I do end up losing one, but I keep one of my Scorpion tanks pretty healthy. Now, you might ask why I went into double harvester here. That was a complete mistake. Didn't need to go double harvester here, but I thought, well, might as well roll with it now and use my double harvester to get something like my Infernos out, because he's going to have a counter to my Scorpion tanks at some point. There has to be a counter on the field. So that means I'm going to need to get my own counters back up, and I've got my attack bikes for the Banshees, but I've also got my own Banshees for the Banshees, and you can see now that he didn't really have the resources to invest. In fact, he was trying to do a single harvester avatar build, which really didn't work out the best for him, and I ended up taking the game pretty handily. Now, I don't know if that was simply because of the fact that my attack bikes beat his attack bikes very early on here, or that he didn't tech early enough into Banshee, but he definitely was trying to fight a losing battle by spamming Scorpion tanks when I had the Scorpion tank advantage. I'm just going to spam more Scorpion tanks back at him, and that's going to make it harder for him to win. So let's move on to the next game, and I changed my deck slightly because you notice that I didn't actually use Flame Troopers there at all, and Cyberwheels kind of fulfill the same job as Flame Troopers. So let's move on to the next game, and I'll show you how I edited my deck up. Alright, we're going to move on to this game now where I have edited my deck ever so slightly, and I decided to cut the Flame Troopers and I added in a Venom. Now that seems interesting to me because I was thinking in my head, well, actually Venom does the same job as the Cyberwheels, but if I can get a Venom out, they usually beat an equal level missile squad, whereas a set of Cyberwheels will lose. Even at this level, you see a set of Cyberwheels will just lose to a missile squad that is 2 levels below them. So Cyberwheels versus missile squads is a very bad matchup unless you can force a 2 versus 1. Now you'll notice that I'm not moving my Cyberwheels onto the pad. That's because I would like him to charge the missile for me, although there is points in the game where you can't avoid that. And now you can see the 2v1 Cyberwheel potential actually works out pretty nicely. He's actually forced to retreat. I can get another set of Cyberwheels out, and again, forcing a 2v1 makes this pretty easy for me to just chase his missile troopers away. Now he responds really well with a Pitbull. However, again, War Factory opener, it gives me the immediate response of being able to deal with infantry, but also being able to go straight into a Scorpion tank. So I'm going to use my Cyberwheels to try and defend versus his missile troopers at the top. Quickly going to go finish off his Pitbull that is down, trying to deal with my Harvester. And then I'm going to then just move on to the pad because obviously the missile is more important than my Harvester for now, and a single Pitbull is not going to deal anything. And then I get the missile, and I can then continue to pressure, sacrifice my Cyberwheels if I absolutely have to, but I still have my Scorpion tank roaming. Now at this point, because I'm running an Inferno deck, and I've got pressure and winning the first missile, I go for a double harvester. I see the Orca come out, which gives me an immediate chance to go into a Banshee, and Banshees will very quickly kill off that Orca, and I will just boost it to get past the Pitbull. Even with a boosted Banshee level 12, it's going to deal with the Pitbulls too, so I'm actually in a pretty solid position here. And so I'm working up towards getting my Infernos out. Once my Infernos come out, this is going to start to sort of control the map. Now the problem with the Infernos is that he is Pitbull spamming, and Pitbull spamming is quite difficult to deal with. I don't really have anything other than a Scorpion tank to deal effectively with these Pitbulls, so I have to be a little bit careful about what I choose to do in terms of positioning. I'm going to boost to get rid of his Orca once more, but this actually is where things started to get a bit spicy. He started spamming drones, and pit bulls, and drones, and missile troopers, which actually makes my current setup pretty bad. I have to use my banshees to get rid of the drones, but then banshees are bad into missile troopers and don't do the best into pit bulls either. So he starts to gain control a little bit of this map, where the Infernos are not going to get as much efficacy as you would have liked. Do control that middle platform really nicely, however. You know, the missile troopers have to walk through the fire to make sure that they can contest. So that's the one good thing about what the Infernos have achieved here, is that they have got great zone control versus the things like the missile troopers, which are going to struggle to get through that fire. See the desperation drones coming out once more. I do manage to lose that missile, however, and now I've got to start from scratch. He's actually managed to bring things back very nicely, spamming pit bulls, and that's where I'm going to start to launch the Scorpion. So at this point in the game, I'm like, okay, oh crap, don't really think my Infernos are going to get anything done versus Missile Trooper and Pitbull spam. He's very good at microing his Pitbulls out of the way, so I can't get huge value out of my Inferno. So I'm probably not going to win this game through Infernos alone. Now you can see at this point I'm pretty committed to just getting rid of my Harvester, so I'm going to get rid of my Harvester here once that fire drops off, and I'm going to use my Harvester to body block the final pad. That means I can commit my forces to being more aggressive, and this is where the Venom actually came in use, because the Venom started to get work done versus things like the Missile Troopers. End up having to boost my Inferno to get onto this bottom pad, but the Venom's coming out once more, and you can see Venoms will very quickly get through those Missile Troopers. And finally, body blocking the zones, getting onto the platform, get the missile. Very, very dicey though, and I don't really think the Infernos are working out too well against this specific deck as well. The Orcas weren't getting much done, but the Pitbull Missile Trooper spam, especially the way that he split them up, made it very difficult for me. So I felt like I definitely needed some more anti-air. And although this guy is pretty significantly below me in levels, it does illustrate what I wanted to do with my deck. This is where I felt like my deck was probably at its best. If I commit to the double harvester play, I might as well go all in on high economy. So picking up a Phantom is going to protect my Infernos really well. And then I have things like the Scorpion tanks to deal with attack bike spam and deal with Pitbull spam. So I just need to make sure I'm more willing to use my Scorpions. So he decides to go like all out Pitbull here, all out attack bike spam here, and I'm going to use the DPS of my CYBERWHEELS to just try and increase my trading potential versus the bike squads, which you can see here. Basically trading bike squad for bike squad at this point. I'm actually going to cut down his bike squads to just a single bike squad each, and that actually reduces the DPS overall of these particular sets of bikes. And you can see now that I'm going to commit to a Scorpion instead. Now a Scorpion is a better response to bike spams, because a single shot from a Scorpion going to kill a bike. Very difficult for bikes to trade effectively versus it. And even though he gets a Scorpion out, it's a little bit too late. Going to end up boosting it to make sure that we get the kill on it. And at this point, I can very happily go into a double harvester. I have got the first missile, which means that I have pressure. I can lose the second missile if I have to. He's actually having to defend as opposed to being aggressive. So the double harvester that comes out here now lets me be super defensive, and I can now look to just pressure from the middle as opposed to having to react to what he does in terms of trying to put pressure on my harvesters themselves. So you can see the bikes coming out here. The bike spam still hasn't worked out for him very well this game. And we now have essentially complete control. He goes into a Banshee, and I could actually just attack bike spam this, but you do have to remember that I have also got the Phantom option, which is what I teched my deck in specifically. So as long as I'm protecting my Phantom with Scorpion tanks versus his bikes, the Phantom is going to be a really, really powerful unit for me in this game. Might not even need to get an Inferno out. The Phantom itself will just two-shot those Banshees, like that. And we have complete control here. At this point, I think he gave up, but this is where I felt that my deck probably had most of its bases covered. Felt like most of my bases were covered with this deck. I had a really strong air. It was a good double harvester deck, and we could make sort of the early game work by having that War Factory opener without relying on infantry as well. And that was the iteration of my CyberWheel deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and, you know, maybe try out CyberWheels yourself. They're not as bad as I previously thought. I don't think they're game-changing, but they definitely give NOD more versatility in their deck building. I'll see you soon.